She looked at online gay Nazi fetish role-playing websites and found that of the vast majority of her participants, almost all of them were staunch, far leftist liberals. So there are people, for example, who are engaging in Nazi roleplay because in their daily lives they feel like they have no control over the racism that they might be experiencing, and by engaging in a form of Nazi roleplay or by engaging in a plantation slavery scenario, they feel some level of control over being able to choose what happens. A great example
What
of
if
this
they're
is,
two white people that are pretending like one is their slave and one is a plantation?
Yeah, so I think that can be okay. Again, there's a lot of reflexivity that needs to be involved in that. So thinking through, if you're having a master-slave relationship, why have you chosen those words? Why is that a particular dynamic that you feel is important to you? Are you recognizing the ways in which racism may be playing a role in those kinds of things?
But what if you recognize it and you're still using like racial epithets?
Yeah,
and like
so,
is that something that should be
I think it can be okay to use racial epithets, only if it's being used consensually, and only if the partners have thought a lot about why they want to do that and what potential benefits and potential pitfalls there are to doing that. That's the way that you help to make sure that it's a positive experience rather than an experience that can be really traumatic and frightening. So a great example of this, like race play in particular, is Melina Williams. She likes to joke that she wants to be able to go to the ice cream store of racism and try a little bit and then be able to leave, rather than having the rocky road of oppression being shoved down her throat every single day like she experiences in her daily life. And I think that's a really useful metaphor, that often the kinds of really severe things like misogyny or homophobia or racism that people are experiencing are things that people don't have control over. And so by finding some degree of control or finding some way to confront your own internalized racism, those can be really healthy and useful ways for people to process. But I certainly think that there's a way to do it that's not very woke and not very safe and not very thoughtful that can be really harmful. And especially if you're doing this in a public context where other people around may not have consented to seeing that particular kind of play. That's something that could be really harmful. So you may have a total understanding of the use of a racial epithet and the way in which that's consensual, but if another person is hearing that nearby, they may not have consented to that being done in front of them. So this is why, at least when I've seen some parties hosted in the community, they'll literally have a big whiteboard that they put outside of the dungeon where people write potentially controversial things that are going to be taking place in those scenes so that people can make an informed decision about whether or not they want to be in there watching or not.
What if, so are there people who would use, I'm just thinking of like a hypothetical scenario, like it's two white people that would like either dress up as Nazis or slave and slave master and use these in one context, but just not tell people, and then when they see it in society, kind of be the staunchest advocates against it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we know this from at least one study that's been done. It's called Queer Nazis or Nazi Queers. It's a dissertation. And she looked at online gay Nazi fetish role-playing websites and found that of the vast majority of her participants, almost all of them were staunch, far leftist liberals. And so these are often people that have some degree of feeling like they're not liberal enough or notice that they have some level of internalized racism and want to work on confronting that, and have found this to be a useful space to work with a partner on bringing those things out so that it can be confronted.
Would it be worse if there was someone who really held those views that was doing this? Or how would you even go about deciding, like arbitrating, like whether someone who was really a Nazi could find someone who was willing to be the victim of a Nazi in this scene versus someone who wasn't really a Nazi?
So for like somebody who is actually a Nazi in real life and is also sexually turned on by like Nazi related role-playing images, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's somebody that what they're doing is probably wrong. It is possible in some extremely abstract way that they could have a satisfying scene with another person who would be able to, handle the fact that that person is actually a Nazi. My gut feeling is that it wouldn't be particularly healthy for either person involved, but there's so little research on this that we don't know. I think that for the most part, people that are Nazis are also generally very homophobic, and so they see the like appropriation of gay Nazi fetish imagery largely by gay men as like something that's really fucked up rather than something that is like actively sexy to them.